Welcome to another tutorial. I received an email from Betty who lives in the West End of Toronto. She writes, I enjoyed your rendition of Autumn in New York, which you recently posted, but I found the music somewhat disjointed. Am I missing something? No, Betty, you're not. For you and everyone else, the music is not disjointed. However, it does have some very interesting twists and turns. I'll go through the music, which should help explain your feelings. Vernon Duke wrote this song way back in 1934, definitely before my time. He has many songs to his credit. April in Paris, I Can't Get Started, Taking a Chance on Love, just to name a few. Just to give you a heads up, I'll be referring to chord numbers and the term tonicization, which I've covered in detail in previous tutorials that I've posted. For your information, I couldn't find a lead sheet to my liking, so for this exercise I created my own. Let's get started by looking at the music. 1 flat, which would tell me we're in the key of F major, at least for the time being, starting on the 2 chord, G minor 7, and the next series of chords are all primary up 2 movements. So we go up 2 to the 3 chord, A minor 7, up to the 4 chord B flat, in this case B flat major 7, and up to the 5 chord C7. I made it a 13 at that point, and I threw in a little augmented fifth here just to help push us across the bar line. I'm writing on the tonic 1 chord F major 7, or in this case F major 13. And then we just move right along up to the 2 chord G minor 7, 3 chord A minor 7, and this is our first look at tonicization. D7, in this case D7 flat 9, well, that's the dominant 5 chord of G minor, and that's where we're heading. G minor is the 2 chord in the key of F, so we would label this the 5 of 2, and that's where we're going. I used a F sharp, turned it into a first inversion with an F sharp in the bass, just so I'd have a leading tone into my G minor chord. And then we just continue along like we did on the first line. Up 2 to A minor 7, to B flat major 7, the 4 chord, and onto the 5 chord C13. I used a passing 7th to take me down to the root of the 3 chord, A minor 11, in this case there's my 11. And again, the same thing that we did up here, the 5 of 2, because that's where we're heading to, is the 2 chord right here. The only problem at this point, I'm at bar 7. I really need an 8th bar in order to maintain the balance. So what I did is I added some more melody line in here, and I chose the 2 of 2, which would be the A half diminished 7. So if I were in G minor, the 2 chord in G minor is A diminished. I put the E flat, the diminished 5th in the bass, so it would fall onto the 5 of the 2 chord, and then take us into the 2 chord. Let's watch the movement of the 8 bars moving into bar 9. We're going to now listen to those first 8 bars in context. I'm going to be posting the chord symbols up here so you can follow along. Okay, let's go back to the sheet music and we'll look at the next set of 8 bars. So here we are on the 2 chord, G minor 11. Instead of going to the A minor chord, which I could have, I used a first inversion of F to take me to the B flat. B flat minor 7 is considered a pivot chord because we enter it in good faith as a 4 minor in the key of F, but it's reinterpreted now as a 2 chord into A flat. So we have a 2, 5, E flat 7, and into the 1 chord, A flat major 7. I just popped in a flat 2 chord in between the 5 and the 1. So now we're in the key of A flat, and if that's not enough, Mr. Duke decides, well, let's move into C minor. So he simply drops onto the 2 chord of C minor and takes us to the 5 chord. In this case, I used a G13 and a flat 9, and takes us into C minor. I used a passing 7th, the B flat, to drop onto the A flat, the 6th chord in C minor. However, we've now found another pivot chord. We enter it in good faith as a 6th chord in C minor, but is now interpreted as a flat 2 chord in the key of C, dropping onto the 5 chord and going into C major. I put in again a flat 2 chord in between the 5 and the 1. You can see that I put a B down here. I put the chord into a first inversion, dropping down to the B, and then up to the D flat, and then dropping onto the C chord. So that's called action and reaction. It's best to jump up to a down note and jump down to an up note. In this case, I'm jumping up to a down note and falling onto now the new key of C. And you can see that we've gone through 2 or 3 different key changes. So this is where Vernon Duke walks a very fine line, because if you do too much of this, you destabilize the whole song. Nobody has a sense of the stability of knowing where the tonic is, because you're all over the map. But he manages, he just gets by the skin of his teeth, in my opinion anyway, but he still maintains a very interesting song, and it's not destabilized enough to throw anybody really off. We are moving back into the key of F. So we use the 2 of the 2 chord into the 5 of the 2 chord, and here we are back into the G minor, starting the song over again. Starts on that G minor 11, and let's give it a listen. Back into the song again. Let's look at the sheet music. Well, here we are again on our G minor 7 chord, the 2 chord in F. This works the same way as it did in the beginning of the song. The 2 chord moves from G minor to the 3 chord, A minor 7, to the 4 chord, B flat major 7, and onto the 5 chord, C7. And I played a little game here with adding a +5, moving that up to the 13 to go over this quarter note triple, just to create a little movement there, and on to the 1 chord. You may recall that the next chord in the sequence was a 2 chord G minor 7. I decided to use a 6 chord for no apparent reason. Both are interchangeable. But this is where it gets interesting. Here we had our motif do do dee da dum, and here's the same thing, do 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 do, in the key of B flat. And we know that because the 2 chord in B flat is C minor, and the 3 chord in B flat is D minor 7. These chords over here set up that C minor chord. Again, the 2 of 2 over A flat. The A flat falls to the root of the 5 of 2, G7 flat 9 plus 5, and here we are on the 2 chord. So we're now doing the same thing we did before, but now in the key of B flat. So the 2 chord moving to the 3 chord, D minor 7. And here we slide up to the 4 minor chord in B flat. We reinterpret that E flat minor 6 as a C half diminished 7 over E flat, and that would make that the 2 chord of B flat, moving to the 5 chord and into B flat minor. So that's the 2 of B flat minor, 5, and into B flat minor. At this point we drop by parallel whole tones from the B flat minor 7 to an A flat minor 7 and simply drop onto the 2 of F minor, G diminished, and the 5 chord. These little slash chords I just put in for some bass movement. At this point I'll play these 2 lines into here, then we'll move into the coda and the finish of the song. Okay, here we go again. Leading into the last 8 bars, so let's take a look at that. So here we are coming from the 5 chord into our new 1 chord F minor. And Mr. Duke decides that let's just reinforce that F minor, so he goes to the 5 chord and then right back to the F minor. You think that we're going to be now established in the key of F minor. Not to be. He decides to do an abrupt modulation, and darn it if he doesn't do the same thing into the key of D flat. He uses the 2 chord E flat minor 7. I used the flat 2 into the 1 chord D flat. You could have just as easily used an A flat 7 or an A flat 13 for that matter, would have done the same job and had a 2-5-1. I used a 2 flat 2-1. Needless to say, I still arrived in D flat, reinforced again by going to the 5 chord and right back to the 1 chord in D flat. Now normally that would be 5 flats, but no time to put that in because we're going to drop onto the 5 chord of F major. At least we assume it's F major because it seems to have the same setup as the beginning of the song with that same familiar motif. There's our 2 chord G minor, so we've got a 5 of 2. There's my 2 chord, my 3 chord A minor 7, and then the last bar before the end of the song, he uses another pivot chord. We enter this as an alt 4 minor chord in F, and it's reinterpreted as a G half diminished in the key of F minor. The D flat in the bass, for the simple reason that diminished 5th will fall onto the root of the 5 chord. So now we've got a 2 of F minor going to the 5 of F minor, and here we end on an F minor chord in a song that started off in F major. And he pulls it off. It seems to work out very nicely. Anyway, I use these chords here to take me to back to the beginning to do a little bit of improvising. So let's listen to the last part of this song and get a feel of what the music is doing, and we'll take it from there. And here we go with the last 8 bars. Now let's hear the coda in context. So we come in on that F minor going to the C and going back to F minor. Let's give it a listen. Out of the 5. Song. I just want to bring to your attention how that ending really works. So you've got that interesting, the F minor. And then a 2-5 in the D flat. drops onto the 5. And I think you're back in F major. Now this is interesting. And if I kept it a major like the beginning of the song, doesn't that leave you flat? It just doesn't work. Notice the melodic line at the end. Very minor, F alien minor. Okay, finish it up. So now B flat minor 6. So buddy, there you go. With all the various key changes throughout the song, it's understandable if you take of it. Duke works a fine line between stable and unstable. Regardless, it's hailed as a classic work worthy of being included in the Great American Songbook. Hope you all enjoyed my tutorial and gained a little insight of how cleverly written this song was composed. Please take time to watch my arrangement of Autumn in New York so you can hear the whole song in context. It'll make a difference. Always look forward to your comments and your support by subscribing. So until next time, keep well, keep safe, be kind.